Okay, obviously a lot of energy, which is great to see and feel in this room. A lot of questions, a lot of comments. Now, in this next section, we're going to get more concrete, and so we are going to be looking at the things in the binder. But before I plunge into that, are there any key questions or comments? I want to just see if there are a few that anybody would like to share or raise at this time. It's all perfectly clear. Okay. All right. So, what are we going to try and do in the next hour and 15 minutes? About 5 hours worth of work. So, we're going to go fairly quickly, but know that everything you need is pretty much in those binders, and that, plus the Holy Spirit, will get you through this process in just fine shape. I'm going to be walking through some of the steps, some of the expectations at the parish level, but I want you to know that there's plenty of room for your own experience, your own creativity. You know, those who aren't feeling quite so creative can use this cookbook, follow it carefully, and you will still produce a great meal. Some of you are going to go through this and use this basic cookbook and create a gourmet feast. And we invite you to that possibility. So, we're going to talk about the planning goals, look at how we got here, where are we going, who will get us there, tools for the journey, talk about the leadership summit that I reflected on just briefly in the first talk, talk about one of the outcomes being a pastoral letter and what that might look like, and then look at some very specific parish initiatives that may be outcomes that we expect are outcomes of all of this. In this section, too, I'm going to plow through this material, give you time to discuss, and also make sure there's some time for questions and answers. So, we're going to look at the planning goals. If you have already looked at your binder, you will realize there's a first section and a second section. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but we're looking at the second section, page 2, that has the planning goals on it. And just real quickly, they are, as we've already said, to engage parishes in a process of prayerful self-reflection on when they've been at their best. That's the discovery phase. Second, is to help, with the help of the Holy Spirit, to discern what God might be asking your parish to become. Third, to create a 5-year plan, the wise use of resources to achieve the mission. So over the next 5 years, opportunities to unpack the dreams and translate those into plans. And last, to be so inspired and strengthened as disciples that you make the commitment to do it, to make it happen. So those are the broad goals for this whole process. Going back to the first section, page 4, if nothing else, you'll get good exercise at this. How did we get here? You know, as you go back home and talk with other people, they're going to say, where did this come from? How did this happen? So, first of all, it started in June of 2012. Probably happened a little earlier than that, but there was a meeting of the Presbyteral Council. And the council identified pastoral planning as a need. Okay, so this is the Council of Priests in the diocese. Last September, there was a presbyteral assembly, and I was blessed to be able to be with the clergy of the diocese for several days. And we looked at pastoral planning, the various models, various possibilities, and there was a basic consensus that came out of that pastoral assembly that, yes, we should embark as a diocese in all the parishes, and that we should use the appreciative inquiry model. There were other models that were presented and looked at, but the consensus was that the one that was most spirit-filled and driven was the appreciative inquiry one, so yes, we're going to use that one. In October, the Presbyteral Council kind of affirmed that consensus. So there was a lot of thought, a lot of discussion that went into all of this. In February, Bishop appointed the coordinating committee that he affirmed earlier. And they are the ones who, God love them, have been working very, very hard since last February, looking at drafts of manuals and models and timelines and calendars and setting up this wonderful event today. So they did design work during the spring and summer. Earlier this month, there was a presbyteral assembly where Know, Love, and Serve was presented to the priests so that they would have a good idea and would be good supports and anchors to all of you who are on the core teams. And then, of course, today is kind of the kickoff where we've broadened the conversation and invited many more gifts and talents. So that's where we came from. Where are we going? Page 4. Well, during October and November, you have, beginning today, roughly 8 weeks, and probably into December a little bit, it's time for you to determine how you are going to do the discovery and dreaming process. Okay? If you're really ambitious and just so fired up, you can start tomorrow, as Father Pat just said. But really look at October, November as kind of your design phase, time to figure out. One of the things we'll mention in a second is the possibility of surveying and getting input from all parishioners. You might attempt that before the holidays as an input, but really look to January and February as the time when parishes and others do the discovery and dreaming. And I'll be very specific with some models that are in the binder. Note the others. One of the things that the coordinating committee is working on is opportunities for a variety of groups, leadership groups in the diocese, to also gather and discover and dream new dreams for parish life. So, for example, in the Diocese of Green Bay, there was a special gathering of deacons and a gathering of parish business managers, and people in university settings had an opportunity to gather. So the church is more than parishes, but it's in parishes where the rubber really meets the road. So the focus is on parishes, but we want the whole community of faith to be part of the discovery and dreaming process. So you'll be hearing more about those others later. Okay? March 1st. That's a key kind of a date, so it's in dark and underlined. What the hope, the expectation is that every parish in one form or another will have completed the discovery and dreaming process at the parish. And in your binder, you'll see a report which says, here are the 5 strengths in our parish, and here are the 5 dreams. Okay? So it's not a complicated form, and it can come out of, and we'll go through some of the various ways to arrive at it. But that's due March 1st, so that's your first kind of target in terms of feedback to the diocese. Should be more than enough time for what we're hoping for between now and then to get that accomplished. By March 15th, we will be identifying the people who will be invited to a leadership summit, which will take place in April. Leadership Summit is a gathering of about 50 people from throughout the diocese, representing various ministries, ages, geographic areas. We're working with the coordinating committee and the bishop to determine what the process is for selecting those people, inviting them. And so that will be coming out down the road. And I'll talk more about the Leadership Summit later. Out of that summit, which is a prayerful, collaborative process, hopefully the hopes, the dreams of the Church of Spokane will be presented to the bishop, who then will have time to prayerfully reflect, consider the wisdom, and issue a pastoral letter. In my own diocese, that was a 26-page pastoral letter of insights and reflections on the experience. Not that it has to be 26 pages, but whatever the Spirit makes sense for this diocese, we'll have to wait and see. Then we go to implementation. Okay, so then you will have some of your own dreams, own plans, but there will also be some diocese-wide dreams and goals and plans. And over the next 5 years, you'll be invited to weave those into the fabric of your parish. What we do together, we can accomplish so much more than if we just work as independent parishes. So that's where we're going. If you go to page 5, there's this nice, wonderful diagram that looks at the process. We are just completing the preparation phase. After today, you are prepared. You may not have realized that's what was happening, but it is. Because the ball gets sent to your court. And you need to design what's going to work best in your parish, the discovery and dreaming phase. Now, as you can see, coming down from the discovery and dreaming phase, there's several options. I'm going to describe 3 basic models. And I'm also going to describe in the orange some of the tools that are available to you. Again, the third green box in is that March 1st, when we're looking forward to that report from your parish. Goes to the Leadership Summit, Pastoral Letter Implementation. So, how are we going to get there? This is second, page 3. First of all, God love you with every one of you in the room. If you need to recruit 1 or 2 more, I think that's probably okay. But don't get your team too big. One of the experiences we've had are teams where they have 12, 14 people. No, this is 5 people, 5 to 8 maximum should be on the team. Who? Certainly the pastor, any senior priest, school principal. The pastoral council chair is a key person. Deacon or deacons if you have. And then 2 at-large individuals. Now that wasn't 2 large individuals. That was at-large. And I want to encourage you as you look at that at-large that 2 people you look for. 1 are what we call wisdom figures. The people who have been part of the community for quite a while, but also look for at least 1 young adult. Okay? Try to make sure that there is that fresh perspective of, some of the younger members of our parish. Consider those possibilities. And then there is the delegate. How many of you know that you're the delegate? Would you raise your hands? Please stand up. Come on. Come on. There's more than that. Don't be shy. We're not sure who's... Let's give these people a round of applause. You have special opportunities for virtuous action. Okay? Your job description is pretty challenging. You know, hopefully you have some skills both in the people and computer area. Thank God that you're here today. You're going to be the key contact person so that updates and information that comes from the Diocesan Planning Committee are going to come to you. It'll be your responsibility that everybody on your core team and pastor gets the communications information. You work with the group, you convene the meetings, conduct surveys. Now, as I go through all of this, some of you may be saying, oh my God, what did I say yes to? Keep in mind that the effective leader empowers and delegates, does not abdicate responsibility. Okay? So it's important that you get others to assist. This isn't just your job. That's why there's a team. And you may have other parish committees or people in the parish who love computers and can take care of online surveys or whatever it is you decide you're going to do. You know, you may convene a special group of people to collate the results of surveys. You may have somebody on your team who just loves to write. I always love those people because I hate writing. I have all kinds of ideas and can give all kinds of talks, but writing, make sure you find the people to complement the gifts that you don't have as delegate. But you're the one who makes sure that that report gets drafted, and hopefully before March 1st, so that you can sit down with the pastoral council and give them a chance to review it. Because in the long haul, it's the pastoral council working with staff and pastor that are going to take these dreams and help translate them into realities. So, that's the role of the delegate. God love you. Tools. Can't overemphasize the importance of prayer. Make sure that you take time for prayer. And in the appendices D, I, and J, you'll find a variety of prayer resources. There are other people on your team, etc. Spend some quality time in prayer. I really encourage you to use the Sunday scripture readings. Allow opportunities in your prayer time to have members present. Offer prayers of petition, family, friends, situations. Do some faith sharing. Nurture that spirit. Take the time. Don't make the mistake of bookend prayers. You know, we're going to do a quickie Our Father, get into that meeting because that's what's important, and end with a glory be to get out of here. Have you been at a meeting or two like that? I'm seeing a lot of head nodding at this point. Okay? If this is going to be the transformative process that we want it to be, we've got to make sure there's space for the Holy Spirit. And it's with prayer. And as I suggested earlier, prayer in the middle of a meeting if it's appropriate. Yeah? Have you ever been in a church meeting where the energy got rather animated? I want to encourage you that if that should happen, first of all, it's a sign of people's passion and energy, which is basically a good thing. But have somebody say, hey, I think we need to take a master break. And just say, well, let's assume Jesus was sitting there in that chair for the last 45 minutes listening to all this. In prayer, remember that haunting question I mentioned in the first talk? If, or given, that Jesus is here present, what would his wisdom be? What would he call us to? What would he invite us to consider? Pope Francis has a great quote with this. Letting oneself be led by Jesus leads to Jesus' surprises. Isn't that a great line? We want you to be open to Jesus' surprises. And when you are, I can guarantee he shows up. And it's wonderful to behold and to be blessed to be part of. Tools. Now, some people may be saying, well, what is this appreciative inquiry process? Appendix H, handout 2525. Huh? That's interesting. I think it's 2526 because it's both in English and in Spanish. It's just a brief description of the AI process. So when you have meetings bringing people together, and they're saying, well, what is this? Make copies of the handout. Hand it out. Let people see it. Explain the process. Walk through the discovery, dream, design, destiny phases. People need a framework. They need some confidence. Feel free to take some of the PowerPoints that are going to be available on the diocesan website. And what's the website address, Father Mike? Just dioceseofspokane.org, and there'll be a KLS logo on there, and you should be able to click it or find a reference to the planning process, and you should be able to get it. I don't think it's posted there yet, because I just sent it to Herb this morning, but it will be within the next week. Okay? As well as the manual is also going to be posted there, so if you have parishioners who are saying, what is this thing? You say, hey, go, look at the manual. It's all spelled out there. Okay, so want to look at, I think the next thing are the models. Tips for surveys. These are some of the tools. Page 8, Appendix B. How many of you have done parish surveys? Okay, so you already have some experience with this. This is not a new thing. You will find some suggestions of content for the survey. Again, I want to emphasize, modify it. If there's some questions, the key questions you want to ask are about those strengths and what people see and what some of their dreams are. And there's a number of different ways to ask those questions, so feel free to modify those. There's different ways to deliver them. One is a direct mail to all households. That can be fairly expensive, but it helps you get to every household. And there are a lot of people who are on our registration lists who are on the fringes of our community. And they have some things to say. And this is a great way to reach out and hear what it is they have to say. They have dreams and hopes too, and we need to know what those are. And they may have other invaluable input. If you want to really increase your return rate, put in a stamped self-addressed envelope. We are a community that guilt works in. People do not want to throw away a stamp. Okay? Sounds crazy, but you will increase your level of return very high. Another modified possibility here is a random sample survey. Randomly pick 25%. And give or take 5 percentage points, what you get back is going to be representative of the whole community of faith. So it's a modified way of doing that. There's the infamous in-pew survey. Right? You hold up Mass for like 5 minutes. Possibly Father can cut the homily by 5 minutes, maybe. I don't know, that may be a lot to ask. All right, well. But now the plus and the minus is that if you do an in-pew survey, you're going to get, that 35-40% of your community that comes regularly. There's going to be 65% that you're not going to hear from. But now these are some of your key 40%, so it's not an invalid way of doing surveys. Online surveys. Has anyone tried online surveys? Yeah, okay. There's a thing called SurveyMonkey and a few others where, there's very little cost, and if you can get people to go to the website will collate the answers and give you a very nice printout and report. You have to be careful in how you design your questions, and there are diocesan staff and team members that will help you with those designs so that you get data back that's very helpful. The last very easy way to do a survey is one of my favorite. It's 4x6 cards. Very simple. You put a pile of 4x6 cards in the end of the pews, and maybe after communion or, before Mass starts, you come and you say, look, we're going through this know, love, serve process, and we're doing dreaming and discovering. On one side of the 4x6 card, would you just write briefly a story of where you have been touched by God by this parish? Okay? Where have you seen the face of God? What are those grace-filled moments that you've had being part of this parish? Just jot one or two down. On the other side of the card, wouldn't it be great, wouldn't it be wonderful with God's help and a lot of good hard work, this parish, 5 years from now, and invite people to finish the sentence. What you gathered back are some of the most powerful, beautiful stories of how God has worked in people's lives. And you put the best, pick the 50 best, type them up, stick them as bulletin inserts the following week or two. It energizes the community. And then what are our dreams? Pick. You'll have common threads that'll come off those 4x6 cards. Whatever you decide, and this is an optional tool for you to use. It isn't like we expect everyone must. In the Diocese of Green Bay, we had maybe half the parishes did surveys. You have to decide what's realistic given the time, energy, resources you have. So again, surveys. Now we're going down the left side of this chart. Some basic models of gathering people to facilitate the discovery and the dreaming. And there are 3 models. Feel free to adapt them. Page 10. It's model number 1. 3-hour process. Okay? And everything's spelled out, and as you go through, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I can't keep track of what appendix goes with where, with what. Just know that if you decide on a model and you go one step at a time, it'll flow and you can cut it like butter. Anyhow, start with prayer, overview of appreciative inquiry, survey results, if you did one. So feed it into the group. You invite as many parishioners as you can to this meeting is one model. And the best way to get parishioners to a meeting is to do what? Feed them. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know your people. Okay? So share your survey results. Form pairs. So have people match up one-on-one. Now, the actual appreciative inquiry process, this is their priority. That you have one person share their story with at least one other person, and not the person they came to the meeting with who they already know. Okay? And there is an interview protocol and questions in your binder as to what to do. This is where you get at some of the really good stories, because it's the stories that give life. So form pairs, do an interview. After you've done those interviews, then you gather in groups of 3 each, 3 pairs or groups of 6. And let's say I'm interviewing Sister Judith. I share in the group what I found were the highlights in the interview. Okay? Sister Judith shares the highlights of my story that I've shared. And again, the power of having someone affirm my story unlocks an energy and a spirit in that room that's very impressive. Then you come to a large group sharing. One of my favorite things is in the small groups to say, okay, everybody put a finger up in the air, and on the count of 3, I want you to point to who has the best story. And it'll jump off the page. And the stories are, just beautiful, powerful statements of how the church was present at tough times, whether it's loss of a loved one, whether it was, in a hospital. I think in my own life I had kids who were not exactly wired into the church. Does anyone else have that experience? And I still recall the time that, the daughter who had challenged me as being a goody two-shoes church worker played her violin on Christmas Eve night and played Silent Night. That she would do that and how it had touched my heart and everybody's heart there. And she knew that there was something profound in that moment. Now, can you feel the energy in the room right now as I just share that little story? Imagine an evening hearing 8, 10, 12 stories that have profound meaning. Go to the large group sharing. Again, hand in reports, collate the results, get your report in. Okay? So this is Model 1. It takes about 3 hours. Model 2 is also a 3-hour experience. Starts similarly with prayer overview, HI, survey results, if done, shared. But this time, you go to personal reflection. Now, there are some people who are saying the interviews are too scary. And so we would prefer to do something safer, and it is a little safer to use small group process instead. But begin with personal reflection and give people time, and there's a form in there they can fill out to ask them some questions, to name those times that God has been present in their lives and they've seen in the parish. Then they come to a small group discussion. And for some, it's easier to share. Keep those groups relatively small. In a group of 12, it's much more difficult to discuss than in a group of 6. So keep those fairly small. Then you go into a personal reflection time again. There are the questions in the binder. What are the dreams? Again, back to the small group. And then you hear reports back from your small groups. Collate those results. Get your report in. Okay, that's the second model. The third one. And at first glance, you may say, oh my God, 6 to 7 hours? What is he smoking? I will tell you about a third of our parishes did this model. And I really encourage you to prayerfully consider the possibility. Because in a course of 6 to 7 hours together, the community building and relationship building that you can facilitate in the parish is significant. The 3 hours are good, but they're snippets. 6 to 7 hours, whether you start Friday night, you go from 6 to 9, and then go from 8 until 12 Saturday morning, with people coming back, or do an all-day Saturday, morning together, go to the 4 o'clock Mass at the end of the experience. I really encourage you to consider this possibility as a moving experience. This spawned in several of our parishes an annual retreat in their parish because it was such a rich experience and an opportunity for faith sharing and growing together as a community of faith. Again, start with that overview, summary, results. Here you do the pairs, and you allow adequate time for the pairs. You do small groups based on what the pairs had to say. You discern together as a group 5 key strengths. Have a lot of newsprint and magic markers and things like that. Here you spend a lot more time with a dream reflection exercise. So you allow people more time in prayer, to consider. Again, I think it's illustrative that Pope Francis, in his interview that was in America, he says, often the first thing that comes into my mind isn't the right thing. Okay? And that's true for us too. if we're really going to let the Holy Spirit influence, we've got to give that Spirit some time to work. And if we rush it, we might miss the opportunity. This 6 to 7 hours allows for that possibility a little better than the 3-hour ones. Small group, large group, and again, you're done. Ready to move on to getting your report in. So, those are the models. Filing the report. What does it look like? It's there in Appendix G for you, in English and in Spanish. And it's due March 1st. Once you have that report done and those insights, now what happens? Well, you can take those insights and begin to use them in your parish. Now again, this is about March 1st. Some parishes are not crazy about new initiatives March 1st in the parish, but we had the experience that some parishes were so excited about their dreams, they wanted to start planning things right away. The woman who talked about the Native American Arts Festival, she didn't want to wait 3 months for a pastoral letter from the bishop to start working on that. Well, don't hold it back. Let it go. Move with it. Consider what it might have to say for your parish, as well as input to the diocesan leadership. Now, the Leadership Summit. I hope that all of you get a chance, but I know you won't, to get to the summit. I've been a diocesan bureaucrat for 38 years, and I have to say the Leadership Summit was one of the most profound experiences of church I've ever had. And my job was to sit in the back of the room and just take notes. I wasn't allowed to be part of the process. I helped design it and facilitate some parts, but my job was to sit in the back at a computer and try and capture every line and every sentence. The room by the end of the Leadership Summit, was in a retreat house, and every inch of every wall was covered with newsprint and notes from brainstorming and priority setting, etc. We had some powerful discernment of input so that all the input from all the parishes, all the input from those leadership groups were summarized in 20-page papers that we got in advance, and our job was to say, where is the Spirit speaking the loudest in all of this? It was a profound experience. We affirmed the strengths. We refined and narrowed the dreams a little bit so that they could be translated into broad goals. We brainstormed strategies. We actually had a problem that some of the people who worked on the evangelization strategy that emerged convened themselves as a committee and started designing materials without letting us know about it at the diocesan level. But they were so excited and enthused with the ideas and the energy that came up. You couldn't contain it. We moved to destiny and recommendations, and these are recommendations that go to the bishop. One of the outcomes, has anyone ever heard of a Wordle? There is a computer program, and it's fun. In fact, one of the things I've suggested is to take your pastoral council minutes for the last 6 months and feed them into the Wordle. Because the Wordle analyzes the words and kicks back the dominant images. Okay? So, as I told you, I was sitting in the back for much of the summit, and I had something like 62 pages of notes that we threw into the Wordle, and this is what emerged. Isn't it interesting when you pick a different way of experiencing this? Now, one of the things which was amazing, and there's no way to predict this, but if you look closely at the Wordle, Can you see what's in the center? Christ. Our summit was a work of the Spirit. And even the Wordle figured that out. You don't see Bishop. I'm sure it's there. Isn't that an interesting commentary? Keep in mind, it's a consultative process to the bishop. So all the wisdom and insights basically come back to the bishop, who then has, God love him, agreed to translate it into a pastoral letter. Yes?
On your previous slide, does the size of the typeface have any meaning?
Yes, because the words that are larger are the words that were used most often.
So Christ is in the center, but it's pretty small.
Christ can do a lot, though. Yes, point well noted. But he was still in the center. Yeah. And there were also Holy Spirit and a lot of other good words there, too. So one of the outcomes will be a pastoral letter. Annually, the plan in terms of follow-through after this process is that there will be an annual diocesan conference that will be based on elements of the letter. So hopefully a year from now, look forward to gathering again to say, how are we going to move forward with the wisdom and insights? And hopefully you'll have some good speakers and input. Annual each year, we want to make sure there's some accountability. So on June 30th of every year, at least at this point, that's what the recommendation is of the coordinating committee, we'd like a report that says, how have you done? How'd you do in this past year? What are your initial plans for the coming year? So that as diocesan staff who are available to help you at different steps along this process, they know what they should be providing and helping. Outcome stories. Oh, there's just so many that I could go into. Green Bay. Here's some of the outcome stories, and I didn't print them all out. These are the reports from this past year where we asked people, what did you do? And I'll just go through a couple of these. First one, St. Matthew's. They decided that they needed to reach out to people who were not part of the parish and in creative ways. And what they came up with was organizing the Holy Mamas. And the Holy Mamas are a mom's support group of mothers who are not members of the parish. Pretty creative. Next one, St. Mary Crivets. St. Mary Crivets is a parish of about 150 families. They put out one of the best plans of any parish in our diocese. They talked, and they decided human dignity in life was the issue they were going to address. They put together a program on the theology of the body for teens, a program on the dignity of persons with disabilities and elderly, and talked as a community about how they were going to welcome in special way those people. They took out, and part of that outcome was they decided that in their parking lot, they would expand it to include 7 handicapped spots that they didn't have previously. They also took up a collection for Rainbow House, a domestic abuse shelter. So very tangible, concrete things coming out of it. St. Joe's in Phlox. They decided, and it's a small community, so when you have visitors, you know. Do you have communities like that? Okay. They made it a personal priority that if there was a visitor, that they would make sure there were at least 4 or 5, if not 6 or 10, parishioners who would come up and thank them for being there. Simple strategy. Doesn't take a lot, some of these things. And they found as a result their community grew. They also organized once a month a social on Saturday nights for anybody who was a new member of the parish in the previous year. Okay? It's a way to engage people, very practically kinds of doing it. St. Paul's in Waiawega. St. Paul's in Waiawega, they have a community summer fest, big festival that the community has each year. They were part of organizing the festival. And they made sure that the community festival started with a high mass at their church, to which everyone was invited. And they were part of the booth, and they all wore T-shirts with the parish name throughout the festival. Again, the creativity of people was just wonderful. They also made sure that 10% of the income from the whole festival, and this is the whole community, not just the Catholic part of it, went to charities. But it was because they helped organize it, they made that happen. 4 parishes in Tigerton, Marion, Wittenberg, Leopolis, they put together a baptism brunch for free as one of their outcomes. Parents who had a child baptized in the previous year, their godparents and parents were invited in. Okay? Marriage date night was another thing they put together. St. John's in Seymour, they put together a program following up their confirmation program called Pizza with the Pastor. 3 Wednesday nights, once a month, where he'd gather to continue to make sure that they were hopefully part of the faith. They also were the one that took their parish mission statement, put it on a refrigerator magnet, and gave them out. I also have another parish that got coffee mugs for everybody with the parish mission statement. Concrete ways of living this out. St. John and St. Mary in Menasha, they decided that as a staff we should model prayer and spirituality. And so as a staff they decided that they would spend 5 minutes every workday before the Eucharist, Eucharistic adoration, to model what we're trying to invite members of the parish to do. Very effective and empowering. St. Mary's in Omro adopted a sister parish in Irwin, Texas, through the Glen Mary Home Mission, is their way of carrying out the outreach part of the call. St. Catherine Drexel, they're a larger parish. They had no less than 8 committees that they organized, put out a 16-page report, and every year each committee reflects on what they've accomplished and what their hopes and dreams are for the next year. It's a way of maintaining accountability and yet celebrating what they were about. There are other dreams that came out of this that were just wonderful. Another one in the youth area, our dream is to have a vibrant, active youth ministry that would draw teens into the church through gatherings, prayer, discussion, involvement in church and outreach activities. Leadership needs to be available for this ministry. We dream to have the funds to hire a qualified youth minister to establish and maintain these efforts. With young adults, we need to meet young adults where they're at. My daughter's on Facebook all the time. Kids are so tech savvy. I hope we can reach them using technology. Outreach and social justice. Finding ways to expand outreach to the poor, less fortunate. The outreach will not only be expressed in financial support for programs and agencies, but also by more participation by all the members in serving in the mission. That Parish Social Concerns Committee become the largest active committee at our parish, that we tend to help the needy, hurting, elderly, feed the hungry, paint houses, etc. That our parish be a refuge of hope for the neighborhood, reaching out to the young and elderly. We need to spark some life into our parish. I would like to see our parish be a place where people want to be every weekend. I would like to see us fill the pews with participating members and hear people sing with enthusiasm. I'm sure that's not an issue in your parishes. Many of the same parishioners volunteer for a majority of tasks. Does that sound familiar? We need to challenge the parish community to call all members to discipleship, to embrace the gifts they have to offer. As one respondent put it, my dream is that people can feel the warmth and love of God through what we do, who we are, in and beyond our walls. I mean, these are great. These are the kinds of things that you get energy over. How can we excite our unchurched neighbors about the gem in their backyard? More lively music that the whole parish can join in on. Not just a cantor as a soloist, but really rock our church through conversion. What else we got? More social events. Potlucks, open gym, one-day retreats. Senior citizens, gatherings for breakfast after communion. Having experiences of fundraisers, not fundraisers. I mean, you get the idea, the things that can come out of all of this that challenge and stretch us beyond where we are right now. What will your stories be? Only time and a willingness to plunge in will be able to tell. If you want to learn more about what happened in Green Bay, which may give you some grist for the mill, we also have a website. It's called holyengagedalive.org. You're all free to check that out and get some ideas. I know that part of the vision is to create a viable, vibrant website here in Spokane. On our website, we have stories, we have blogs, we have best practices, a variety of things, and only too happy to share that with you. So, at this point, are you feeling overwhelmed? If you are, don't worry. There's a checklist. Appendix A, page 6 to 7, okay, is really everything we've gone through in 2 pages. So that as you meet, coming out of this meeting as a team, any question, this is your grist for the mill. You need to decide what of these tools you want to use, and maybe come up with some tools that we haven't thought about. That again, tap into the lived positive experiences in your parish and unlock the dreams. So, in wrapping up, I want to give my thanks to the bishop for being open to this exciting possibility. I also want to underline the work of the coordinating committee and end with a quote from Pope Francis before I give you a chance to talk and ask at least a few questions. Pope Francis says, we ask this question: am I stuck on a playground, or do I wish to fly high? Are you stuck, or do you want to fly high? He goes on and says, am I tied to a herd, blindly doing what everybody else does, seeking only self-satisfaction, focused on myself? We have too many parishes that are nurturing cultural Catholics following the herd. And I want to invite you to consider to fly. So instead of just following the herd, do I look above to fly high? And I love this line. Don't be scared. Dare to have fabulous plans. Not just good plans or nice plans. Fabulous plans. Consider that possibility. He goes on to say, I encourage you to not be afraid to dream, to have great ideas, to be builders of hope. That's my prayer for you. I want to give you a couple minutes at your tables to chat quickly, and then I'll try and field a couple of questions before our prayer at 4 o'clock. With that, thank you. Are there any key questions that even in your brief discussion just now that were raised that maybe I can try and answer or give you some other insights on? That's phenomenal. There we go. Thank you.
In terms of getting the energy that we've got at our table, what kind of experiences did your parishes in Green Bay have in translating that respectively into engaging the parish? My guess is you probably saw some parishes be more successful than others. Mm-hmm. How did that play out? And do you have any other suggestions that you would offer for making that happen?
Well, the first thing is that in order to get the energy that was generated here, thank you, back to the parish, it's critical that you as the core team have an opportunity to share the experience you had this afternoon. And some of the excitement, the energy, and whether that's, a reflection after communion or going to the pastoral council and sharing the story, the more you can share what you've experienced and some of the hope that hopefully is welling in your hearts today, the more people who are going to come to your meeting to see what the heck is that about. Assuming they come, and they may come as some of you did as you walked in the door here, like, what the heck is this? And hopefully you'll have the opportunity to seduce them. Some parishes did a discovery and dreaming session 1 week and then another one 2 weeks down the road. And because of the power of the first one, there was another whole group of people who came to the second one that wouldn't have because they hadn't heard from their friends and neighbors. So that would be the example I would give. Somebody over here had a question? Yes, Father.
What is the next step that the board team and delegate need to do?
Okay. What is the immediate next step that the delegate core team has to do? The immediate next step for the delegate core team is to schedule a meeting. That's as concrete as I can get. So that you have a chance, first of all, to step back from the experience today, spend some time with the binder, look at some things there, talk with a few others, but then you need to come together. That's the next step. Pull out that Appendix A. And Appendix A, in effect, is an agenda for what you need to do, because you need to decide, are you going to do a survey? Okay? And you're going to evaluate the pros and cons and models. Are you going to do an open parish meeting? If so, what kind? Are you going to try a parish retreat, the 6 to 7 hour? How are you going to tap in to the Spirit present in your parish? The diocesan committee, and we were just talking about this, is probably going to be asking you to be accountable on this. And so, make sure that you do schedule that meeting. Don't schedule the meeting in January. Capitalize on the energy and hopefully the enthusiasm that you have right here. Yeah.
I think to drill down a little bit on that, for that answer, pull your Appendix G. You got that? Okay, now what we're going to do from the committee's going to do is they're going to refashion this, and they're going to put it in a future tense rather than a past. So they're going to ask you, what is the process that you plan to follow? And then you're going to check which ones. And we're also going to ask something about when you're anticipating the time frame in which you're going to do this. We're going to send that out to you, to the parishes, and ask you to make sure that you have that sent back to us by the November 30th date, so that there is a built-in accountability structure here, but it also keeps you on track with regard to what you should be doing. So this here, these various checkoff points here about how you're going to plan your parish response will be redone so that it will be a forward-looking report to us. Then it'll be given to you in this form at the end when you submit your report, so that because you may have had to do some adjustment. But we want at least a preliminary indication by November 30th what you're going to be doing. So we're going to exercise the kind of leadership that is prodding.
Yes, question over here.
On the ALS process, there's a blue line with method 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. There's the orange line. Mm-hmm. Is that one or the other, or are we expected to somehow do both what's on blue and what's in the orange?
Okay, the question is, as you look at the process chart, there's the blue line and there's the orange line, and are you expected to do both? No. What you're expected to do is to look at that as if they were ingredients to create a fine salad. Pick and choose which elements from both those lists are going to make the most sense to the resources, time, energy that you have in your parish. Okay, so you might pick Model 2, which is a 3-hour experience, and you may pick 4x6 card surveys, and that's what you're capable of. Others may say we're going to schedule 4 retreats because we want to get as many parishioners as possible through those day-long experiences, and we're going to do an electronic online survey. And for those who don't use the internet, we're going to have a pile of surveys at the back of church they can fill out, and we'll enter them into the online database. So you choose what's going to make the most sense. I will tell you, the more people that you engage in the process, the more the Spirit is present, the more energetic stories and energizing the experience can be, the greater the likelihood of not renewal just for your parish, but for the diocese as a whole. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Last question.
Are your slides today available online?
My slides will be available probably next week and on the diocesan website. So if you go to dioceseofspokane.org, you will, if you poke around long enough, you will get them. But yes, all of that will be available to you. With that, I thank you and turn it over to the bishop.
Thank you, Mark. I know that by that warm applause, we're expressing our gratitude. There are 4 things that I want to say to all of you before we go into our prayer. The first is that it really is important for you to get on this now. You have an enthusiasm in this room that is very obvious to me, that has been represented also at your tables. Start your planning coming together as soon as possible to keep that fresh. And then look for a way in which you can complete that form. You don't have to wait until November the 30th to make those decisions. So we're going to make that available to you next week, and we would like you to get on that. The other thing is that there are prayers in here in the booklet that you've received, general intercessions, as well as prayers maybe that you can start beginning to use in your parish as you move forward. Perhaps on the first Sunday of Advent you can begin that with the beginning of a new year. That's also going to be the kickoff for our diocesan year-long celebration of our centennial. The Presbyteral Council made some decisions about that, and we're going to be giving you more information in time about that. So I would ask you to very seriously look at having those prayers said by the community on a weekly basis, and then also including some of the prayer intentions that are there. The third thing I want to say is you can do this. As I said to someone imitating a good friend of mine who's a bishop in another diocese, all I want on my tombstone is, I try to treat you like adults. And I really believe that you have the ability to get this moving. If you have difficulty in finding the right people who can get this thing organized to do the process, find in your community a teacher. They know how to get things done. Teachers are great. They're wonderful resources. So go to those kinds of resources that you have. And the final thing I want to say to you is something I learned this summer when I gave a talk in Australia. The symbol of the church in Australia is the kangaroo. And it's not because the church has deep pockets. But it's because a kangaroo does not have a reverse gear. It can only go forward. It can't go backwards. And maybe that's a good image for you as you take on this challenge to realize that you're helping the church take its next step forward. And you're moving us forward by the work that you're doing. Thank you for coming. We're going to now go into our prayer time together, which is so very important for this to be a success.